Hey everyone, hope you're doing okay. Today's video we're going to be looking at Indy and streams. One of the problems you may encounter when starting with a new library or in learning how to use it is the maybe insufficient demos, or you can't find a demo to do what you're trying to do, and so that may become a bit of a challenge. So this is a question that came to me through my YouTube channel as a comment about how do we send a stream through Indy, and the demos that have come with Indy now compared to years gone by seems to have reduced, and the demos that I cannot find the demos that used to exist, although it would have been on my Windows machine. So what we're going to look at then is how I approach this particular problem of, well, how will I send a stream? And part of this is sort of, creating a protocol of sorts so that we can tell, or the client can tell the server that it's going to be receiving a file and then sending that file, and other problems that may occur and how we can deal with those. For example, how do we send how do we tell the server how much data is going to be sent? Do I have to send that, or would the component do that for me? So really how we start with, we need to go into the form here, and there's no new components, and we're going to use the same demo programs from the previous video on Indy, where we have a client program and a server. And what we're going to look at first of all is the client side, and once we've looked at that, we'll then go into the server and see what changes were made there. So the only component that was added to this particular into the client demo was an open dialog. I didn't set any properties, so it's just as ugly as you can make it, we can say. So now when we go into the and then also we added in this send file button, and we're going to look at the code behind that one, and that handles the sending of a file of my choosing to the server. So if we go and look at the code for this, and by the way, this particular video, this request came from, I'm going to guess it's Tom Unger 717 and dbox71 who asked this question. So if anyone else asked it, well, sorry if I've missed your name. So this first part here really is to avoid, let's say, an access violation or something similar to that. And then the other part of it is here, we display the file open dialog, and then we get the file name, obviously, when they click on the OK button, and that file is what we're going to be sending. Fairly straightforward so far. So I know, from the when we're sending, let's say, an individual file as a text message, what I want to do is look in this sort of area and see, is there something here which could be used to send a particular stream? So I also know that the function starting with it could be either a send stream or a write stream or something of that nature. So what I do is I would search for something like a stream as a bit of text, and as it turns out, let's see if we can go down a bit further here. Looks like it's not going to appear, so we're going to do that right now. Okay. So here we've got a write function here, and it takes in let's say a stream as a parameter, a size, and a parameter which is write the byte count. So for me, it would make sense that we need to include the byte count, because if we are going to be sending files of different sizes, how do you know when you've reached the end? So, and I can see here that this parameter here also defaults to 0. So what does that mean? So let's go to the implementation. So that's Control Shift and down arrow. Okay, so here is the function to write a stream that we were looking at just a bit earlier. And what do we have here? So if the file size, or if a size is less than 0, so we're going to do all from the current position. Okay, well, I would rather just have it do all, so we can see here that if I do have 0 as the size, then it will get the stream size and make sure we're positioned at the beginning of the file. So that's a tick. Now the write byte count here is going to be, if we are going to write the byte count and we're using a large stream, then we will send the size of the stream, and also here we're having a check occurs here to say, well, if it's higher than the largest integer, it'll raise an exception, and then it will send out that particular size. And then it goes into a while loop here where bytes are being read from the stream and then being into an L buffer, and that L buffer is then written to the server. So what this tells me now is, well, this particular function now will handle, or will allow me to send a stream from the client to the server quite easily. The trick will be, how do I tell the server I'm going to send a file? So here all we need to really do then, I'm going to now, in terms of, let's say, implementing a protocol, if you will, what I'm doing here is to say send a file. And if you're worried about, let's say, someone's using that as particular text, well, you can always change it to put some sort of character on the front so it looks like a command if you need. You could also even add in, say, the file name as a parameter to be sent, and that could be used as the destination file name as well. So here what we are going to do then is we are going to go into a, for lack of a better word, a send file mode. We're telling it we're going to be using large streams just in case, because it depends on your what sort of files or information or stream you're sending and how large they are, and then basically sending the stream. So remembering the parameters were being the stream we want to send, where 0 to say we're sending all of the file, and we also want it to send the size of the stream initially. And really that's all there is to that particular, or to the client side of this function. So this program has been built already. So now what we need to do is to jump into the client side to see, well, now that the client can do that, we need to put this implementation onto or put code into the server to handle the receiving of that particular file. So let's go into that particular project here. Now, the execute function from the previous, this is the same server demo as we previously used. You remember that we displayed some information about the information that was received from the client, and it would then echo that back to the client as well. So in this particular case here, when the server receives this particular message here, and remember, by the way, you can make this as simple or as complicated as you need to, and really that's up what you need to send is what you need to send. So anyway, so here when we got the send file command, we're going to be dealing with large streams again. Now in this particular case here, I'm just writing out to my own file or to a local file here. You could specify the path, etc. And then we're telling it the mode to be create or open write, and then essentially what's going to happen here is that we're just going to call read stream. Why am I just doing read stream without any other parameters except for the stream? Well, because the byte count with -1 and read until disconnect is false. So a byte count read until disconnect. So when we want to go down to this particular function here, let's see whether we can get to there. So because our stream will have an unknown size, so byte count being here would have been -1, it knows that we are we're going to be reading that from the client here, and having read that from the client, it's going to go into this process of capturing the data that's received, and in this case here, because it's going to a file, it gets written out to file. So from the code that, let's say I have to write here, it really is a case of just opening up a new stream. Whoops. It really is a case of just creating a new stream, and that could be like I mean, if you can imagine this being, say, well, we're not really talking about an Indy, a HTTP server here, but if you were to send a Word document, say from to to a partner or someone, so you can imagine here that the client sending the file, you're told that you've just received that send file command. You can open up a file or stream as to receive that data. You then receive it into the stream. Now, what you do with that stream after that point is up to you. For instance, if I knew we were sending an image, I could put that image up on the display. But in this case here, all I'm going to do is get the file, close the stream off, and job done. So why don't we look at this in action now? So we'll just make sure we've got a good version here of that program. So I'll minimize that and that window there. Now this is the folder where my server demo is, and that's down here. So we'll start that one up, hit start again, and this side here on the client side, what we're going to do now is run that one. Let's connect to our server, and here what we're going to do is we click on send file again. So let's find a image that we could send. So let's do that one. It's 400. This particular file here is 480K. This is our file open dialog, obviously. So now we're going to select open, and what's going to happen here when I do click open, remember, it's going to write the stream with 0 as the size, meaning we're sending it all, and we are also using large streams, and we are sending the file size as well. So you can imagine, the file size and the data. So now we hit open, and in this particular case here, the file has been sent, and here you can, this was the image that was I chose to, let's use color paint here to open that with. And here was the image, which was the same one, which was the image we used from my last video here. So you can see it's written, it's been put into that folder there. What you do with the stream, where you store a stream if it were a file, that's up to you, but that's what we're looking at. So that's really all there is to sending a stream. So we'll just close those two programs down here. We'll just go back into here. So basically those two lines of code, or those lines of code there to receive it, and from the client side we just go back into there again. Here we create a stream based on the file that we've selected. We're opening it in read mode. We just send it again, and that's about it. and I've told it, like I said, that I'm going to be sending a file. The one little tip though I do want to show you here though is, and I'm just going to build this program here so I can show you what we're looking at. In this case here, let's bring up this one here. I basically have all the options turned on when it comes to compiling my program, but when you have something like a button and a sender, and if you don't use the sender, you are going to get this message here about the sender not being used. So how can you turn that off? Well, perhaps the easiest way would be to go into your project options, and then under compiler options, and under, I think it's messages here, if you find this particular, there's a message here about parameter not being used. If you just turn that one off and then hit the OK button. So that's about it for this particular video. So I hope you got something out of this one here about how to send streams, between a client and a server. Of course, if you are wanting to use FTP components or HTTP components, all that sort of stuff would be built into those already. And the other thing also is that if you are using, let's say, an HTTP or the FTP components that come with Indy, you can always jump into that code there and see how they implement those sorts of functions, like sending a file or receiving a file, etc. Because if you've got the source code, you can look at that and learn from that, as I've stated in previous videos. So until next time, happy coding, and I'll see you and then, and bye.